Hi, everyone. I'm Elisa Kerr, and I'm the Partnership Liaison for the National Institute for Direct Instruction. And I'm so glad you're here today. Today, we have a special interview. I'll be talking with Ashley Barrett from St. Charles Parish Public Schools. She's a teacher who's been using direct instruction for the very first time, and she's sharing her honest perspective on what this experience has been like. Listen in.
I am a teacher, a special education teacher in St. Charles Parish Public Schools. This year, we started the DI program for just our school in the parish as a pilot program. So they, I'm a special ed teacher, so they move me around. So every other year I was in fourth grade, and this year they moved me to second grade. So it was a big jump for me. But I was trying to figure out what I was going to do for the year, and they sent me to this training in the very beginning of the year, saying that a lot of my kids that had learning disabilities and dyslexia and things like that, and speech deficits, were going to be in the program. So I got trained at the beginning of the year, and then they ended up pairing me with another teacher, and I did the language part every day to the kids for 2 blocks. It was a mix between first graders and second graders that were at a very large deficit. So they were starting in the kindergarten program at the very bottom. And they put me with I was doing language, and then my partner was doing the reading. So we would switch like halfway through for each of the blocks. But yeah, so that's how I got started. It was definitely brand new to me, especially coming from fourth grade, because it was new, but it was very helpful. So I'm glad that I was able to get started with it. Well, coming from fourth grade, I had never seen a script like that before. So that was probably my biggest hesitation. Um, we, I'm so used to being creative, especially in special education and doing my own thing. So it was very new to have a script to follow and then have protocols for correction and things like that. That was all brand new to me. Also, the fact that it was phonics at all was new to me, since I didn't come from that. I was coming from um more of a whole language approach in the upper grades. So that structured literacy was new, and just the repetition of it all was new. So those things scared me a little bit, especially because I had kids. I was in special education, so I had kids that I couldn't even understand them. Like their speech was so poor. Um, Jumbled together. Their dialect was very thick, so it was hard to understand them anyway. So I'm like, how am I going to get them to say the whole thing? How am I going to get them to say the whole thing and say these whole sentences? I was really worried about it. And then also the fact that they had the protocol for correction, and I knew some of my kids had behaviors, and I was worried about that repetition being a problem for them. But trusting the process, it really works. So yeah, I think my hesitations, they lasted a few months, but I was able to get past them pretty quickly. So one thing that we do in St. Charles Parish is we do morning meetings. So the morning meetings are with their homeroom classes, and I was with the second graders. I had two or three of my kids that were in that homeroom that I was in. So we would every morning they would have to like share, and they would have to say good morning. And being on the language side, I saw huge improvements on how they were speaking. So in the beginning of the year, I couldn't understand anything they were saying. As we were going through, they started using like the say the whole thing method, where they were using the complete sentences. They started using that during morning meeting. And one morning, one of my girls, she's the sweetest thing in the whole world, but she couldn't understand. We were like, uh-huh, because we couldn't understand anything she was saying. And she was telling a story about something that happened that weekend, and she was using the structure that we had been doing, and she was pointing to the pictures, and like she looked like me, like she was showing us what she did. And I was just like, and we were like, thank you so much for sharing. Does anyone have any questions?
Oh,
Another part was I had to pull the kids later in the day because I'm special education. So I had to progress monitor them for their regular IEP goals. And some of the kids had the reading goals that I had. And in the beginning of the year, I was noticing like they didn't know the letters. And I was worried because I'm like, they're in second grade. How do they not know their letter sounds? Um, but by probably, I would say midway through the kindergarten curriculum, they were able to apply that stuff they were learning in DI to all these other words. So words they hadn't necessarily seen before, I was giving them like the readers that we would progress monitor, and they were able to read those words. And I was like, this is
Wow,
crazy. And I think that things that it hadn't worked in the past for them, and that was the big kicker for me, they're second graders. So kids that it hadn't worked in the past, all the things we were already doing wasn't working. And then all of a sudden they were able to communicate better. They were like, their communication skills were crazy better. And then their reading was improving as well. So I think that was the big turning point for me. I had it was two like severe speech issues where I was like, huh? And they by the end we were having whole conversations. Think that the repetition in the script is the thing that really made me understand why we were using the script so rigidly, because they just keep the same language keeps repeating, so the kids never got confused. I feel like a lot of times as teachers we use our language, our teacher talk, and we try to get them to understand in all these different ways. But the more that we would use the same language, that same consistent language, they were able to answer more on signal, be able to have mastery. Like that was the biggest thing for me. My kids in my groups, I had two groups, they were the biggest growth out of all the other groups. They jumped to the first grade curriculum from the kindergarten from starting in the kindergarten curriculum. So
wow.
we got through a whole and part of the next one. And so they did amazing. And nobody was ever below 90%. And if they were, they got it on the next try. And it was maybe once or twice in the whole year. So I think that was kind of where I saw it. The biggest growth is the mastery test showed me that they were mastering what we were doing. And then when they later on, when the other teachers would ask them the same way I asked them, they were still remembering that stuff. So that recall got a lot better. So when we're thinking about like a student with dyslexia who struggles with working memory, they need us to say the same things. They need us to repeat the same things over and over again the same way. Because if we don't, we confuse them. We're trying to build their working memory. So I saw a lot of growth with my students that had special needs of any kind, whether it was a learning disability or dyslexia or communication issues. When they were asked the same way, it was like, oh, I know exactly what I'm supposed to say right now. So it was a good transference through the different things that we were doing with the program. Biggest one was a little girl that I was talking about. Like she grew so much. Like we finally were able to hold conversations. We became like little best friends. She was with me all day, so like even in the afternoon we did math together as well. So we were able to like keep working on things all throughout the day. So she definitely had the most growth. One thing that I'll mention is that students with speech issues. So I was really worried about this in the beginning because I was like, how are they going to even say a complete sentence like that? Like they have a speech deficit. Like, how is that even going to, that we have to take into account their disability? And what we saw was students that, especially her and a few of the other ones I had that were like severely having issues with their tongue ties and things like that, struggling with the repeated practice, they were growing so much. So we saw more speech growth than anything else, like them actually meeting on their IEPs, the meeting for the year before the year was up. So that was probably the biggest success, was seeing that speech growth. So I think the biggest piece of advice would be to trust the process, because it is at first you're like, why am I repeating the same thing over and over again? And this sounds so repetitive and this is boring and it's just pictures. Like there's certain things where you're just like, I want to do so much more. I want to be creative as a teacher. But one thing that you can do as you continue on, you do end up mastering yourself the language in the curriculum. So over time, you can spice things up, giving, like I would give kids high fives when they got it. We would do cheers every time we had like a point of mastery. And I think that at first I was so focused on making sure it was right. I was saying it right because it was brand new to me, but you do end up mastering that language. And then over time, it all just builds. So you don't always just have to read from that book. You'll know what it's going to say so that you can go more fluidly. And then that the processes they give you, it's a lot less planning, a lot less prep. Like as long as you've read it, you know exactly what's going to happen. So it actually does take some stress off of you as a teacher and gives you a little bit more work-life balance. You're not taking that stuff home because you know what it's going to be. I would say read it in advance because it's a lot of language. So you kind of have to master what you're going to say. Even the letter sounds and things are different. So like if you didn't practice it, that will be evident. However, it's a quick practice, and then when you get through it one time, your next group, it's like the same exact thing. So it's a lot easier to teach that way. And then you do have the autonomy to come up with little games and things and high fives and fist bumps and things as you're going. So it can still be fun and interactive for the kids. So it's rigid in a way where you have to say the same thing. You're saying the same language, but the language is purposeful. So just to anybody that's starting, I would say trust the process. It really does work. Give it some time. Your kids are going to grow for sure. And when you see that growth, that's where you'll start to really buy in. So just make sure you're doing it with as much as much attention to it as possible. Like make sure you're paying attention to it, because if you're paying attention to those words and the way that they're saying it, it builds on itself. And it's going to be both in the language and in the reading curriculum in the same language. So you're going to have that same wording. You're going to see kids grow in comprehension and in reading. So I would say trust the process and make sure you're actually doing it with fidelity as you go, and you're gonna see amazing growth. And you can still be spicy and cute and do the things you want to do as a classroom teacher as well. I think the biggest thing that I didn't realize is that I could add in affirmations as like at first I was reading it straight from the book, like very rigid, because I didn't know what I was supposed to, I didn't want to mess it up. And I think that after doing it for a little while and getting coaching on it, so after like Tara came and like gave us some coaching on it, as well as some of our just curriculum coaches that came through, they were like, it's okay to affirm the kids even when it doesn't say it in the book. And it's okay to cheer them even when it doesn't say it in the book. And I think I just needed that, like, once I got the green light of the okay, you can do those things, I was like, oh, and then it all clicked for me. I think that rigidness scared me a lot. And at first it was like, okay, I'm not sure how much I can spice this up, or or if it has to be exactly like this. But as we went, I got more, okay, I can affirm them after every time. That's what they need. Or I can repeat this part because they need that extra scaffold, and it's okay to do that. I think it just took understanding that it was okay for me to still be a teacher and still do my teacher moves that I knew I needed to do and scaffold appropriately throughout the program, because they give you, like in the trainings, they give you what you can scaffold. Like you can repeat this part, or you can say this twice, or you can go back when you do your correction, you can give them more than one model, like things like that, that I just didn't know you could do at first. So if I could go back, I would have probably asked those questions. I just didn't realize it was a question at the time. But you can scaffold it, like for your kids, and when you do that, it does help them. So I think that would be the biggest thing that I wish I knew in the beginning. And also just that they would grow so much and that it would be okay that we were using a script. I didn't have to be afraid of the script or afraid I was going to say the wrong things. Yes. So we had Tara as well as a few other people come. And when they came, they would watch us teach in each of the rooms for a certain period of time. For us, it was always also a chance for, like, because we're doing a pilot. So we also had a huge group of people from the district come. It was a little intimidating. So it was always like a lot of people in the room. They got used to them though because they were there so much. But over time, over time it got better. But when they would come, if anybody was teaching something just a little bit, like not giving the right wait time, or not signaling appropriately, they would jump in and help us to show us like how model how that should be done. And I think as teachers, a lot of times we get a lot of advice, but we don't get a good model. So we're not really sure how to implement the advice. So that was nice that they were able to do that immediately. I never felt disrespected or anything. I was always like, no, show me because I want to be able to see it. But one of the times, and I don't remember which coach it was, so I can't tell you which person from NIFDI, but it was one of the people from NIFDI. I was teaching and I had two kids in the back who weren't responding on signal. And I was trying everything. I was like, listen, everybody, like I was doing everything I could and they were just not. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to give myself a point. Like I was doing this teacher student game. And she was like, how about this? How about everybody in the back is going to answer and nobody in the front's allowed to answer, just everybody in the back. I want to hear you loud and clear. And it worked so well. And I was like, I would have never thought to break the group up and have some of them answer. So like, it was just little teacher moves that they had used in the past. You could tell they had used it in their own classrooms. And because of that, we were able to implement it more quickly. And I'm very good with teacher like feedback. I want the feedback so I can immediately start changing what I'm doing. Like even in the beginning, one of the things they said was your classroom, you don't have a lot of affirmations. And I said, I thought I could only do it if the book said it because that's what I thought. I didn't know that I could give the students affirmations if the book didn't say it. And they were like, oh no, you can give it after, you can give them a yes, whatever the answer is. Like you can do that throughout the whole thing whenever you feel like you need to. It'll help cheer them up when they're making mistakes. And I was like, oh, like I didn't know I could do that. So I feel like the help from the curriculum people that came, I feel like those really that made the difference. And also that affirmation of them seeing our growth and seeing like the weekly data and being able to dive into, okay, let's look at this student and pull this student out for a little while because they need their own thing. Like that was crucial for our success. So they were very helpful and never judgmental on like how we were doing it. They would always like jump in and help us. So we definitely couldn't have done, I don't think, as good an implementation without them. I feel very blessed to have done this program. I feel like that structured literacy is so important and being able to actually do something that is science of reading based that shows kids how to read and doesn't just hope that they read, like that. And that's one of the things that I, as my own person, when I was younger, we did whole word language as well. Like you just have to kind of know it. And I remember kind of struggling and my mom teaching us some phonics just so that we could have like a basis because our school wasn't teaching it that way. And struggling, like even I was in honors classes and all of that stuff as an adult, and I was very smart, but I would have to read things over and over again to comprehend it. And I still feel like if I would have learned this way and learned that structured way to be able to apply it to all words, I wouldn't have to keep reading things over and over again. Like I feel like I would have better comprehension. And this program supports comprehension so well. So even like I remember taking the ACT and having the worst anxiety because I had to read the story more than one time to comprehend it. And I could read it quickly, but I couldn't comprehend what I was reading because it was just, I feel like people can do that so much better with the way we're teaching it now. So it's something that I'm glad that I got the experience to do. And I also, like in the morning time, I would do this program. And then afternoon time, I would do some other structured literacy programs with the other grade levels that weren't in the pilot. And I felt like
Mhm.
this one was just so much more direct and
Mhm.
less of a guessing game. And we actually were doing this for mastery. I hear so much, I've heard so much. I've been teaching for 13 years. I hear so much about, oh, we're just exposing them to it. We're just exposing them to it. But I feel like that exposure might be good in like maybe a math setting where you're learning like something that's way over your head and you're just exposing them to it. But that mastery piece is what's missing for all of my students with special ed accommodations. Like they don't slow down enough in any curriculum to be able to really teach them and really target what they're not understanding. And this program really places them exactly where they are and helps them grow from there instead of putting them in their grade level and hoping that we can accommodate around them. So
Yeah.
yeah, so I just feel like it's really helpful and I hope that they keep using it at our school. Um and that the district continues to try to use programs like this that'll help foster actual reading and not just guest reading. So
Yeah.
I had fourth graders in previous years still not know their letters, and I was like, how does this happen? And kids even like that were not sped, that were just really low, and they just kept failing and have kept being placed. And I feel like this would have been so helpful to know. Like, this is the first year we've done it, so I didn't know this existed. But now knowing what I know, I wouldn't go back to teaching it the way I was teaching it before, like with just echo reading and choral reading, and that's it. Like, I wouldn't do that now because I know what the foundation looks like. So, yeah, it's definitely an eye opener for sure. We also got trained this summer on the corrective reading, and I
Yes.
loved that training. I felt like, okay, this is more my speed. Like, I want them to go faster. They have a better foundation now, you know. So like I have some kids that got retained, so they'll get this corrective reading, and hopefully I want to see gaps close. Like, that's my goal.
If you are interested in receiving the same type of training and coaching support that Ashley received, email us at info@nifdi.org or call us at 1-877-485-1973. NIFDI provides implementation guidance to school and district leaders, as well as training and coaching to teachers implementing direct instruction programs to ensure that all students are successful. For more information on what NIFDI can do for your school or district, visit our website, www.nifdi.org.